let's move on to round number 4, which today is going to be dealing with the guy who shot President Reagan. This story is a wild one too. One, because I would think in American culture, the worst thing that you could do is try to assassinate the president. No matter who that president is, what time period and that you're talking about, I would think that most Americans would feel, if you did a poll and said, how long should you go to prison for if you shot the president of the United States while he's president of the United States? I would imagine almost everybody says life, right?
I would assume it's automatic life. Yeah, you would have to, even if they were insane, just as a deterrent to others who might try it, you would think it would have to be life for the sake of national security.
And I'm a big mental health guy. Like, I believe in mental health and how you're not going to be doing the same type of thing that you did if you're in a healthy state of mind. But shooting the president is just so different. This one comes from NPR. It says a federal judge has approved an unconditional release next year for John Hinckley Jr., who wounded President Ronald Reagan and 3 others outside of a Washington, D.C. hotel in a failed assassination attempt in 1981. And this is what me and Feidelberg talked about this in the last Barstool Confessions. It would suck to be in this role because it was like you were with President Reagan whenever he got shot, even though you got shot too. You're never going to get mentioned. It was President Reagan that got shot and 3 others. Yeah. It's the same thing like John was talking about. He took a helicopter ride with Dave Portnoy one day, and him and somebody and Hank were on the flight, and they were like, well, if this goes down, it will be Dave Portnoy and 2 others were killed in a helicopter.
Right, exactly.
That's what their lives would essentially be like. But Hinckley, who is now 66, has been living outside of a mental health facility for the past several years, the result of graduating a lightening of his supervision. His lawyer said the monumentous event of Hinckley's full release in June is both appropriate and required by law. There is no evidence of danger, said Levine, who is his attorney. And the prosecutors and Justice Department agreed to a settlement, but wanted Hinckley to monitor for the next 9 months because the 2 biggest changes in his life. He was going to be living on his own for the first time in 40 years. And because his primary doctor is preparing for retirement and disbanding Hinckley's therapy group, and the Justice Department said it would file a demotion. So they would still want some. I can unconditional release, like where you don't even have to go check in. Like, even if you are if you're clinically insane and that's the way that you get off, you would think that the court would want to monitor that to make sure that you're getting your mental health treatment, that you're going in, that you're still doing well. Because I would imagine that's something that could stop, right? Like,
I imagine that's always going to be a little bit of a thing if you shot the president. I don't know enough about it, but and doesn't he make his own? We talked about him on this podcast a few months ago. He makes his own music now.
Yeah, he makes his own music, and
he's got music videos on YouTube, and
he's just goofing. He's just doing stuff. And not only that, but he was also ordered to stay away from Jodie Foster, who he also tried to assassinate. He was going to have an assassination attempt against her, and the family members of the Reagans is who he want to. But he does have a YouTube channel where he sings and plays the guitar.
I'm sure that's a big relief to Jodie Foster and the squad. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I would assume that's a lifer thing. Again, I don't know. It's just wild when you look at what, again, I don't know enough about the law. He pled insanity and they went with that. So that aside, I feel like the punishment dished out for different crimes are so wildly different and inappropriate in some cases, the way they differ for like there's somebody who sold $5 worth of weed, probably still in prison down south somewhere.
Yeah, like for a third strike law or something like that, where you have like a little bit of weed and you're going to jail. Like, I've seen people here in Texas where you get your 4th DUI, you go to jail for life. You can go to jail for life if on your 4th DUI.
Yeah. Crazy.
But they do say that he had 30 years of checkups consecutively where he had no relapses, no remissions, and he's been in full and completely stable for over 30 years. Like, and having it. So if you are in that spot and something happened to you and you get treatment, like, it's hard for somebody like us that says we do value mental health care and that you aren't yourself, you're doing things that you aren't yourself. And I know that from personal experience. It's like, you shot the president, man. You did shoot the president. That's still pretty bad.
You did shoot the president. He hit him in the left lung with a .22 caliber bullet, just missing his heart. In an impressive feat for a 70-year-old man with a collapsed lung, He walked into George Washington University Hospital under his own power.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Badass
Crazy.
move. I think that's the reason why people really like Reagan. It wasn't trickle down economics or anything like that. It's the image of the president getting shot and walking in under his own power. People like that shit.
Yeah, he joked to the surgeons, "Please tell me you're Republicans," right before he went under the knife. So
Classic goofball.
Total goofing.
Oh,
and the next
Reagan.
day, he resumed some of his executive duties and signed a piece of legislation from the hospital bed. So
yeah, that was one of the biggest. They thought it was going to be a constitutional crisis because they didn't really have everything figured out of who was going to be in ultimate control. Was it going to be HW or is it going to be Reagan? Whenever he was under like under anesthesia, they had that type of concern. And then that same type of thing happened when W had an operation where they weren't sure if it was like an official presidency, like if you had to have a transfer of power.
Right.
It is. I mean, if you're under full anesthesia and you're getting president, like you think so, somebody's got to be in charge.
It's like when the whole country throws a party real quick because the mom's away. You're like, oh, everybody wild now. Also the Jodie Foster tie-in and the part of the reason for his like cause of insanity or whatever it was, he was obsessed with the movie Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. Did you ever see that? So he apparently watched the movie more than a dozen times, became obsessed with Jodie Foster, and attempted to reenact events of the film in his own life. Thus, the movie, they argued, not Hinckley, was the actual planning force behind the events that occurred that day. I mean, lawyers, big brain lawyers there doing that. So pretty interesting. Who knew?